The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, our guest is Denice Chenault. Denice began her path in personal development in 1989. She majored in communications at the University of Colorado, and at 23, she underwent a 2-year intensive training in group facilitation and personal development through Dreikurs Relationship Center in Boulder, Colorado. She's led courses all over the U.S. and Israel. She studied life coaching with Martha Beck. She has been a keynote speaker at a multitude of events, including the most powerful women in network marketing. She has reached the top ranks in her network marketing business and is passionate about serving others, specifically women and mothers. I know I am only scratching the surface here with Denice in this introduction. Every time I have had the privilege of talking with her, I learn more about some of the truly amazing experiences she has had and the valuable strategies and knowledge she has to share. So welcome Denice Chenault to the Naturally Inspired Podcast. Well, thank you, Denice, so much for being here today. I'm so excited to get this conversation rolling with you.
I am too. I love you, Tammy.
And really, I do. I've learned so much from you already, and I just can't wait to share some of your knowledge with our listeners. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born?
I actually grew up in Colorado. I'm a Colorado native. I grew up in Evergreen.
Which is rare to be an actual native.
Native, right. And Tom and I both are Colorado natives. And my hometown was a little town called Evergreen, which is in the foothills of the mountains. And both my parents were teachers. My dad was a high school counselor and would, sort of substitute English and history. And then my mom was a 4th grade teacher. And I have a younger sister who is Amy, who's 6 years younger than I am.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Sisters. Yeah. That's nice. I have a sister too. So that's really good. What was your family like growing up? Were people into personal development in your household, or
well,
is that a no?
No, I was not, it was not the sort of family that we, listened to Jim Rohn or, any sort of personal development. And not that my parents were against it in any way. I just think that, you don't know what you don't know a little bit.
Right.
And so it's nothing that they had really experienced. And so, no, I sort of stumbled upon it in my 20s when I was, out of college and trying to figure out who I was, who I really wanted to show up as in the world.
Right. What were you interested at that point when you were growing up? Did you have certain hobbies that you were into?
I was a total horse girl.
You had a pony?
I did have a pony. I had my first pony. I fell in love with horses at about 8 or 9 years old. And my very first horse was a horse named Polly Pony. And I rode English, hunter and jumpers. And she was awesome, except at every horse show, she would buck me off. I would get so nervous. We would train so well at home. We'd get to a horse show. She'd feel my stress and energy.
Right.
And she bucked me off almost every round.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it was quite.
And you kept getting back on?
Oh my God. Well, here's the crazy thing is that I became an expert at riding bucking horses. And so any horse that needed a little bit of training that was a little precarious, they'd go, oh, go get, have Denice get on it.
She's used to getting thrown off.
Yeah, because she kind of knows how to stay on. Yeah, so that was my true love was horses growing up. And I rode from the age of 8 to 18 until we sold my last horse. And I went to college. But yeah, I had 3 different horses during that time and horse showed. And of course, it is what they say a rich man's sport. And so being the daughter of teachers, I had to do everything that nobody else in the barn had to do because
had to pay your way.
I had to pay my way. And so I was the one mucking stalls. I was the one getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and braiding manes and tails for all the other horses so that I could earn my way for, my horse show fees and the trailering fees and the
Oh my gosh, I know.
All that.
It's quite a commitment owning a horse.
Oh my gosh, babysitting to get my first saddle, all of that. But you realize what you would do for something that you
that you really want,
you're passionate about. Yeah. It's like your daughter would dance, what won't she do? She would do anything to be.
She's obsessed. My daughter is obsessed with dance. Yes, and she will do anything to go to these conventions and all of that. So. Yeah. I'm grateful. I mean, I'm sure you were too at the time to have something like that in your life.
Yes. Oh, I do say, and I say it jokingly, but not really, that was where I found God, was on the back of a horse.
That's beautiful.
I really believe that being out in nature, being one with a, 4-legged being was really that first union I felt.
Yeah. I can relate to that totally. It's just being in nature is like church to me. My running is meditation, sometimes even prayer. So, I mean, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yep.
So you said that when you got out of college, that's kind of when you started digging in to find yourself. And I love that term because I think we all use it, especially in our 20s when we're not sure which way to turn. So can you talk a little bit about how you got turned on to personal development then? How are you trying to find yourself?
Because I didn't grow up in a religious family, my dad was Catholic, and his dad was actually a deacon in the Catholic Church, and then my mom was Baptist, and so they wouldn't allow them to get married in the Catholic Church. And at that point, my dad said, done, I'm done with religion, done with church. We'll never. And so I think that when I came to Boulder, Colorado to go to CU, I really started looking around for what I believed to be, I was trying to find God, and what did God look like, and how could I find spirituality. And so I was reading a lot, and then when I met my first husband, and at this point I hear Tom's voice going, she's been married 5 times, which no, I've not been married 5 times, only twice, just but when I met my first husband, Bobby, he was actually involved in a course called the Dreikurs Relationship Centers, and it was based in Boulder.
Right.
And I took the course, and I just absolutely, I loved it. I loved what came, the work was hard, but what came out on the other end was so beautiful. And I saw the transformation, not only for myself, but for everybody in the room. And so it was at that point, I was about 24, and I was asked to be a part of their instructor training program. And unfortunately, they decided to move the headquarters to Austin, Texas. And so
bad timing.
Drive down Yeah. So I flew to Austin for about 2 years, every other weekend.
Oh, wow.
Would fly in on a Thursday, spend, Friday through Sunday, come back Sunday night, and went through their training program. And so Bobby and I both taught courses together. I taught courses there was always a male and a female instructor, and then I would teach with other male instructors as well. And we taught all over the U.S. and we taught a course in Israel, in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And
Wow. That
and
must have been really rewarding to see the transformation for people, giving them tools to work through things.
It was, people were able to get through challenges that they never thought that they would get through, and they were able to process it in a weekend.
Wow.
They realized that their story that they had been living into was exactly that. It was a story that was from the past, and that they could create a different future.
Right.
And so yeah, that was my life. And then I ended up, I ran the Boulder Center for about 3 years. Enrolling people into the course.
Mm-hmm.
And
you must have seen a ton of people then be transformed and be able to use this effectively.
Hundreds and maybe thousands. And
wow.
And what that gave me is that I've heard everybody's story. And the beautiful thing about that is that there's nothing you can say to me that's going to surprise me about your past, about your childhood, about your experiences. Nothing, because I've heard it all. And so, I was just talking to a gal the other day on the phone, and for an hour, and she was a complete stranger. And she said to me, she texted me afterwards, she said, "I can't believe that I shared so much information with this stranger." And she said, "And I felt like you were one of my closest friends." And it's just because there's nothing I haven't heard.
Right.
And the resiliency of human beings is incredible, and what we're able to get through and become, in spite of, some very traumatic and tragic pasts. It's always surprising to me, what's on the other side.
Well, really, personal development gives you, that's kind of a broad term, I guess. So maybe we should break it down a little bit. Personal development to me is basically a set of tools, more tools for your toolbox, more than what you grew up with, more than what you got taught in school, more than just the golden rule. These are tools that you can apply especially when things get hard. So how has it affected your life using personal development?
Well, and every single year I make a commitment to do some sort of program, because, it opens up doors that, like we said before, you don't know what you don't know. And there's so much that I don't know. I'm being curious about the world, and being curious about myself and what I can uncover and be open up to, and so for me, being able to not have things affect me negatively.
That's the ticket.
That's really, and trying to see things as they are, not the way that I think they should be, is huge, right?
Yes.
And so, every upset causes suffering, and no matter if it's a tiny upset, like if you're tailgating me, that can just
drive you mental.
Drive me crazy, right? Or a big upset, like, losing somebody in my life, right? So the spectrum, but the process is all the same. And it's
Yes.
peeling back that onion. So I just want to peel back that onion one layer at a time and try and
Right.
find, what's the true Denice, and how can I be more patient? How can I be more loving? How can I be more compassionate in the world? Because
Right.
that's who I want to become.
Well, and that's how we truly connect with people. And in today's world right now, there's so much volatility going on that imagine if everyone had a new set of tools to practice, based in some of the self-development that, we're going to talk about today, how effective that would be in connecting with someone, even if you don't agree.
Oh, it's, and it's so easy, as Eckhart Tolle talks about, the fact that ego is always trying to justify itself, figure out
Right.
where, who the other person is, where you lie.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to lump people into teams, which is what we do
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And you're either with me or you're against me.
Right.
And
And
as
it's so
soon
much more
as we do
complex
that,
than that.
as soon as we do that, you shut that door, and
Yeah.
there's no opportunity to really be able to hear people.
Right. Right. I think I shared with you the other day when we were visiting that there's a quiz that you can take about politics. And if you take this quiz, a very high percentage of people end up coming out right down the center. And I found that so fascinating because we took it in my house and everybody landed in the center. And it's something like 80% of people, like it's really high, land in the center. So why this huge polarization then?
We're more alike than we are different.
Absolutely.
And at the heart, everybody wants the same thing. We want to be able to take care of our families, provide for our families, have a good future, take care of our earth, all those things. We all really want the same things.
Right. Right.
But you're right, is that the polarization is going to kill us.
Right. Right. So that's how valuable some of the self-development tools are today. If we really can share our stories with people and give people new tools to use, it would be such a revolution in the way we communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. The communication's everything, right?
Yeah, it really is. So you mentioned every year you do some kind of course, or you go somewhere and you kind of go off on a retreat and do something to grow yourself. Whose courses have you done, and what have you got out of them, and what's been the biggest impact on you, do you think?
So the two that have had the biggest impact have been Martha Beck, who I first saw. We went to LA to see one of Oprah's events, and I'd never heard of Martha Beck, but Martha Beck was one of Oprah's contributors in the magazine.
Okay.
And she was a Harvard professor, just a real brainiac, right?
Uh-huh.
And she realized that every time she would drive to go, she was teaching at Harvard, and she would be driving to go teach a class, and she'd get this horrible feeling in the pit of her stomach. And she realized that she loved the students and she hated academia. And so she completely got out of that whole world. She's written several different, probably, about a dozen different books. And she became a life coach, which, to any Harvard professor would be this sort of airy-fairy,
right, jokey. Yeah.
And but what I love about her is her story is so incredible, because she ended up having a son who has Down syndrome, who is one of the most beautiful souls I've ever met in my life. And this kid changed her life because she saw something that had nothing to do with what we call, being smart or having that sort of the intellect that we would associate with being smart. And he was her true teacher. And so Martha Beck has a life coach program, and I went through that program.
Yeah.
And essentially, Tammy, it was exactly what you said. I just needed more tools, because in network marketing, I was coaching a lot of women.
Yes.
And what was happening is I was sort of starting out doing like just basic goal coaching, like, okay,
Right.
what'd you do last week?
Right.
What are you going to do this week?
Right.
What didn't work?
It
And
gets so much bigger than that.
it is so much bigger. And I kept running into the same problem, which was these women would pick a goal that they're going to achieve the following week, and they just wouldn't do the activity.
Right.
And so I thought, what's underneath? Like, you want this, your why is big enough,
Right.
and what's underneath the not taking action?
Right.
So that's what I just needed, more tools. And so I went and
see.
did Martha Beck, and that was phenomenal. That it was about 8 months long. So Martha Beck, who I absolutely love. And then the second one, Byron Katie, last summer,
Yes.
I went and spent about 12 days with Byron Katie in Ojai, California. And, there's really, I can think of very few people who are what I would term egoless and have this sort of higher consciousness thinking.
Right.
And Byron Katie, Eckhart Tolle, Ram Dass, there's just maybe even Deepak Chopra, like there's a handful of people.
Yeah.
And in Byron Katie, being a woman, because I gravitate to women,
Yes.
I look at who do I resonate with, and then can I go hang out with them?
Right.
I just wanted to rub off.
You've hung out with a lot of really cool people.
And that's, and so I hang out with Byron Katie, and I do the School for the Work. That's what her process is called, the work.
Right, the work.
And I go and do the School for the Work, and it's 12 days. And she's amazing because she's in her 70s. And a lot of these people, when they go and do if they have seminars like this, they maybe show up for a couple of hours, but then
Right.
It's really their people that come in and do most of the work.
Right.
And not Katie. And she goes by Katie. But Katie shows up for like 90% of it.
Wow.
And
she's really in it to serve the people then.
Oh my gosh. And it starts at 7:00 in the morning with a walking meditation. And then we all have breakfast together, and then a sitting meditation. And then, we do the work until lunch. And then we have a little bit of a lunch break, but we're doing homework, on the lunch break. And then we have the afternoon session, and then we break for dinner where we're doing more homework, and then the evening session. And so literally it was from 7:00 in the morning until 10:00 at night.
Wow.
And I just, and people would hear that and they go, oh my God, how can you sit that long? And for me, I was like, I couldn't get enough. It was just so delightful and yummy. You just want to hang on to her coattails,
Right.
And
well, I think people who are interested in personal development, part of the reason we're so interested in it is because we want to help other people. But myself, I run out of tools. I feel like I've come up short in helping someone else with advice or with just, what do they do? And so going to these seminars and whatnot, I'm like you, I can't get enough, because I know that I'm going to be able to pass this on to someone else, and it's truly going to make an impact on their life.
Yes. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, if you listen to things, I mean, when Oprah was on, her Super Soul Sunday, I would literally take notes.
Oh yeah.
I was like, and it's notes from me, but it's also, it's notes. How can this contribute to somebody else's life? And for
Right.
me, writing things down, I remember things better that way.
Right.
So I am always listening from the perspective of, how can I learn, but how can I pass it along as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's so valuable. So I want to dive in a little bit to Katie's book because I just finished it.
You're amazing. You read it in like 2 days.
I listened to it. I was like listening on the treadmill. I was listening while I was running. I couldn't get enough because it was so refreshing how simple she came across. Like these are such simple things that you write them down and you can follow the steps. So I want to talk about that a little bit. She specifically talks about, kind of, in a nutshell, the work is about the 4 questions. So
Right.
Tell me about that. You were there and immersed in the system. Talk about the 4 questions and how they impacted the work.
So the work is the 4 questions and plus turnaround statements. And so whatever's causing you suffering, whatever that is, and let me just think about an example that I can give because I want to give a real life example. Okay, here's and I haven't processed this, so this will be interesting. So so the 4 questions, so whatever's causing you suffering. So here's what happened.
Is it true, right? Is number 1.
Yeah, so I go to the coffee shop where my son's working, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's probably 9:00 in the morning, and I knew that he was to open, and that they don't open until 7:30. Don't ask me why. It's a coffee shop, but
Okay.
not mine. And so it's like 9:00. So he technically was supposed to be there for an hour and a half, right?
Right.
And I'm looking around and he's not there. And I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach, oh no, something's happened.
Right.
So he didn't show up. He's gonna lose, like, you know how we go down the rabbit
Right.
hole.
Yep.
He's gonna lose his job. He needs this job.
Right.
He was doing so well. So I go, whew, right? You can all relate to that.
Yes.
Where we have it, a minute before, we're fine.
Yeah.
Something happens, we go, whew.
Right.
And so, so the 4 questions. Okay, so the feeling, let's just use something happened and he's going to lose his job.
Right.
Because they didn't show up, right?
So this is the question you propose.
This is, so you get
the
to
statement.
Like the statement, like what's you get down to the simplest.
What is bothering you?
Yes.
What is it? Yeah. Succinct. Yeah.
So, like if it's, Tom was kind of jerky to me, I might say, well, Tom's a jerk, Right. So you just very short and simple. So, so Dominic didn't show up. Something happened. Something's wrong. He's going to lose his job. So the first question, is it true? Right. Something happened. He's going to lose his job.
Right. Is it true?
Is it true? Well, let me think about that.
Right.
So if I sit with that, and that's the first piece is you really have to be present.
Yeah.
Right? You have to go there, you have to settle in for a second, and you have to allow that door to open just a wee little bit to be able to see if there's something else going on maybe.
Right.
And something happened, he's going to lose his job. Well, I don't know what happened. Actually, he could have been taking a break. Right. Or he could have been running an errand for the coffee shop.
Right.
Or he could be in the back room.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Or maybe somebody texted him the night before and said, hey, actually, it works better for me to open. Can you close?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So is it true? No.
You don't know.
I don't know. Right? And even
Yeah.
that little piece of I don't know opens up that door.
Right.
Is he going to lose his job? Well, that is not even in my realm of knowing.
Right.
And it's actually none of my business.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Which Katie goes into as well.
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
your business?
Yep.
None of my business. Right?
Right.
Especially at, let me just point out, 27 years old.
Right.
Right? So the second question, can you absolutely know it's true?
Right.
Well, I've already said, no, I don't know it's true.
Right.
And then the third question, how do you react? What happens when you believe the thought something happened, something bad happened, Dominic's going to lose his job, right? Well, I get that feeling in my body. I feel sick to my stomach.
Right.
And as I talk about it, I can actually feel that feeling in my body, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that feeling. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm a little panicky.
Right. Because our thoughts create our feelings.
Exactly. And so I'm a little panicky. I'm not present.
Right.
Because I'm waiting for a friend to come in. She walked in. I'm kind of
Still
in my
looking for him.
I'm not present to her, right? And so I'm disconnected from the world at that point.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So so that's how I react when I believe that thought. So who would I be without that thought?
Right.
Is question number 4. Who would I be without that thought? Huh. Well, if I think Dominic's job, he's responsible. He's a responsible kid.
I don't even know if this is true.
I don't even know, and I'm the other thing, how do I react with that thought? I'm kind of mad at him.
Right.
I'm kind of mad, like, look at what you're putting me through.
Right.
So who would I be without that thought? Well, I would still have that connection with my son. I would be connected with everybody around me. I'd be present.
Right.
I wouldn't have this icky feeling in the pit of my stomach.
Right.
I would be happy, joyous, and free.
Right.
And I would be exactly where I was 5 minutes prior to walking in, which was I was having a great morning.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So
how fascinating it is that we're more alike than we think, because we all do that. We all get ourselves worked up over things we don't even know.
You don't even know.
True.
and so much suffering is about fear, and fear is either past story or future anticipation or imagination.
Right. It's not present.
So it's not present.
Right.
We're either making things up about what could possibly be true.
Right.
Or we're back here in what has happened in the past.
Right.
Which is not reality. Right.
I love just what you just said right there. I think we have to say it again because it's so important for people to understand that. Because there's a lot of terms out there, like I need to work on myself, live in the moment, just get rid of your ego. Like these terms are thrown out and they mean something, but when you don't have actual tools, like questions like this, they don't really mean what you think they mean. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's just so much more powerful when you say, okay, hold on. My fear, it lives in the future of what may be. Right. And my fear lives in the past of what may happen again or what has already happened.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So right there, those are two separate entities, future fear and past fears. And when you live in the present, there is no fear.
There's just opportunity.
Right.
There's just opportunity for the present moment to unfold.
Right.
And yeah, if you look at every time you feel that feeling of suffering, and that's a full spectrum, right? Whether
Right.
you're just uncomfortable or you're on the bathroom floor sobbing,
Right.
right? That full spectrum of suffering, it's all about what goes on between our ears.
Right.
You know,
It's your perception.
it's your perception. And people ask Katie all the time, like Oprah did on Oprah's podcast. She interviewed Byron Katie, and she said, so you've never suffered since this whole experience unfolded and she came upon what she terms the work. And Katie said no.
Right.
And Oprah said, so you've never had anybody die? And she said, oh no, 6 months ago my mom passed away.
Wow.
And Oprah said, and you didn't suffer? And she said, no, it was a beautiful experience. And the fact that I could be there in the present moment and watch her watch this death process unfold.
Right.
If you're really there in the process, because it's all of our sufferings about us.
Right. Yes.
I'm going to miss you.
Yes.
I'm going to miss out on
Yes.
our relationship. I'm sad because you're not
Yes.
going to be here.
Yes.
I'm sad because you're not going to be able to see, it's all about me.
Absolutely. My mom passed away, and I was fortunate enough to be there when she crossed over, as I like to say. And I had some different feelings at that point of almost feeling guilty because I felt relief when she passed over because she was suffering.
Yeah.
She was suffering. And it took me a long time to process why I felt relief and that it was okay that I felt relief.
Not only that, Ram Dass says, every time I get to experience being with someone who is dying, it is he feels like to be there in that process is such an incredible gift. And I was with my mother-in-law as she crossed over, and the way. And you can do it so many different ways, but if you can do it with an open heart,
yeah,
and without resistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like with your mom, it's like, if somebody is suffering and in pain, then absolutely, and we don't even know what this whole process is about,
right? Exactly.
Listening to Eckhart Tolle and listening to his thought process around death, there is no birth if there's not death.
Right.
And so and facing death with different eyes, because I think in our culture, we don't talk about death.
Right.
We don't experience death.
We don't revisit it enough either. And that's, I think, a problem in our culture where, in the Spanish culture, they have the Day of the Dead. And I was fortunate enough to attend a celebration last year, and it was incredible. Everybody brought their photos of the people who have crossed over, and it was this celebration. And that's not common, in the Western world. We don't celebrate like that. Yeah. And I loved it, and we're going to do it in our own home this year because I felt like it was so valuable. The kids got to see everyone that had crossed over, and it wasn't a sad day. It was a joyous event.
Yeah. Isn't that great? I mean, just being able to see it through a different pair of glasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so valuable. Well, so those 4 questions, they can be applied to anything. I mean, when you think about it, any statement at all.
Any statement, and in the littlest, like I joke about the, someone being a tailgater, but
oh, I know.
Sometimes being on the highway, those other people in the cars are sometimes our greatest teachers, but
right.
It's like if I start to feel myself like, oh man, you better not be doing that, dude, don't be getting up there. And I can unravel that in seconds now.
Yeah. Well, and I think it gives us some control back. We cannot control any of the circumstances that are outside circumstances that are coming towards us, but we can control how we respond and react to them.
Totally. And what you make it mean. See, I'm taking it personally that this guy's dating me. That guy has no idea who I am, and it's absolutely not personal in any way.
Right. But our tendency is to make everything personal.
Oh, for sure. Oh, is it? Yeah, because it's all about me.
Right.
You're approaching on my world. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love these questions because it brings it back down to, stepping away from the emotion that's behind it, or the ego, I guess maybe it's the ego, right?
Yeah. I mean, ego is always, and if going back to what you said before, like, sometimes we use different, like, what I thought ego was in the past was, somebody's egotistical, right? That's always my interpretation of ego in the past.
Right.
Go and listen or read Eckhart Tolle's, any of his books, and he breaks down ego, and it's in all of us.
Right.
It's ego's always fighting for control. Ego's always, and ego is addicted to suffering.
Yes.
And so, it's ego. Yes.
Right. Can you cover that statement that you just made a little bit more? That ego is addicted to suffering, because I feel like we have neural pathways in our brain. And when we have created a habit of thinking a certain way, like taking something personally, we're quick to do that. But is it a habit of thinking, or is it our ego that's pushing us that way, to think that way?
Oh, I think I think they're hand in glove.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. And I think, like, let's use the example, because we can all relate to somebody who we know who has been ill. They've had some sort of dis-ease in their life for a really long time, right? Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's autoimmune, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have suffered from this disease so much that they have researched everything about the disease.
Right.
They know everything more than a doctor even could know about this disease, to the point where they identify as their disease.
Right. A label.
Their whole, who they are is cancer, right?
My cancer, my lupus, my fibromyalgia.
Yeah. And so there's no distance between body, disease, and their true self, which has nothing to do with all that. Right. Their essence. And so they are at the point where they so identify with their disease that they can't even imagine what it would be like being well.
Right.
And so that process, it's ego loves it, because here's what happens with ego. I come up to you and go, oh, Tammy, how's your cancer?
Right.
How are you feeling? So now I'm getting goodies from being ill. Right? And now I'm identifying as the cancer. So it's both. It's right. So then it becomes habitual, and ego is getting like, oh, that feels good when I get attention. And let me just say, this is all unconscious. Like, I'm not choosing all this, right?
Yeah. We don't even know we're doing it.
Yeah. So it's all of that. Yeah.
Wow. And how powerful to be able to kind of peel that back, right? Peel that back with the questions, to stand back and just peel all that back just for a second. I would challenge everyone to just try it. Just try it once.
Who would I be without this disease?
Right.
Who would I be? Well, you would be happy, joyous, and free,
Right.
right? And how would you be behaving differently? And what activities would you be doing differently?
Right.
And what people would you be associating with?
Right.
And so
Right.
it's all just the questioning. I was listening to Deepak Chopra this morning, and he said if you're going to sort of do a deep dive into your own personal consciousness, the first question you ask yourself is, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Now, first off, you when you answer that, you're going to say, "Oh, well, I'm Denice Chenault. I'm 53 years old. I live in Longmont, Colorado."
Right.
Like
Yep.
all the labels.
Give your stats.
Yes, exactly. My stats. Well, we all know that's not who I am.
Right.
Right. And so sitting with that in meditation first, like sitting with that,
Mm-hmm.
and then, like you just said, peeling back that onion.
Right.
Okay, great. I'm all those labels. What's underneath that? Okay,
Right.
what's underneath that? What's underneath that?
Right.
And it's the process. And that's the process that I love. I
Right.
love that process because I want to get to the true essence of Denice.
Right. Of who you really can be,
Which is not
unaffected by fear and ego and outside circumstances.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The other part of Katie's work that I loved, which I thought was so powerful, is her business. When she talks about business, is it your business? Is it someone else's business? Or is it God's business?
Isn't that great?
Yes. I think that's so huge. So if you would please explain to our listeners, what's your business? What's someone else's business? And what's God's business?
Yeah, well, I kind of, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, like,
yeah,
my business is, well, it's like, if you have a hula hoop around you, it's everything that happens between, 1 foot and me.
right.
Anything that has something to do with just me.
Right.
Right. And then, and not my business is everything else.
Right.
And
like
so,
what other people think about you.
What other people think about, what I think about other people.
Right.
And that's why gossip is so addicting
Right.
And that's another, ego loves gossip, but so much of what we spend our time on has absolutely nothing to do with me. It's none of my business.
Right.
How you choose to run your life, how you choose to, whatever decisions and then it's God's business.
Right. The wars and the forest fires and the, diseases that people have to deal with and stuff
that we can't affect, right. And we do. And at the same time, it's like, if we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. However, there's a lot of those problems out there that it's bigger than all of us.
Right.
So it's not in any way a ostrich, head in the sand.
No.
But what can you truly
do about it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's so powerful. If we asked ourselves that when we're dealing with situations, as well as the 4 questions, like, is this even my business? Truly,
is it my business? I caught myself earlier today, and I actually said, it's really none of my business who they choose to get to do this.
Right.
It becomes a little bit of my business if they ask for a suggestion, I give a suggestion, they don't follow the suggestion, and then the repercussion is that I'm answering questions again. So like,
right.
There's
if
a
you
little
get pulled
bit of,
into it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of bleed, but really,
right.
for the most part, like most everything has nothing to do with me.
Right.
Like, let people run their life. And
right.
I've been a member of Al-Anon for, maybe 8 years now.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest things that I learned in Al-Anon is it's really none of my business. And what happened was I heard a story about a girl whose sister was sort of alcoholic slash mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And the sister came to her for money. And she then, after she got done talking with her, she set the phone down and then she said, oh my God, I better alert the rest of the family that she's going to be calling for money and for help. So I got it, and then she realized, I don't
It's none of my business.
It's none of my business. Like, what the other members of the family choose to do, if they choose to give her the money or not give her the money, it's none of my business.
Right.
That was huge for me.
Yeah. And how much more time, that's huge for me too. How much more time do we have, to work on ourselves when we're not spending our thoughts on this stuff?
Oh yeah. When you're living your life and not living everybody else's life.
Yeah.
Think about how much time would be freed up, right?
Right.
And it's so much healthier for everybody.
Right. Because, and this is really good in parenting too. Like after I got done with the book, I thought this is so applicable to parenting because no matter what, my kids are getting older, 14 and 16. And, it's that time when they're making the transition into more independence and whatnot, and letting go is hard. But they are on their
lessons.
Yes. They are on their own journey. And I have to remind myself of that. They are on their own journey.
And so many of us are mama bears.
Mm-hmm.
We would do anything to help and to protect our kids,
Absolutely.
And yet at the same time, sometimes we want to end their suffering to the detriment of them.
Of their growth.
Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes that stuff needs to happen in order for growth to occur.
Yeah. And it really takes a discernment, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to mess around with certain things,
Right.
I mean, I remember when Dominic was in high school and having to call up a parent and say, hey, if I ever hear that you served my kid booze,
right,
I'm calling the cops. Like there's that
the line. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the letting them make their own mistakes and suffering the consequences.
Right. Or even, when they're expressing themselves, I find, they're going to say what they want to say, and they're going to learn that maybe they shouldn't have said that, or instead of, just let them do that.
Yeah. And teenager, I mean, being a teenager is hard these days, I think. And their job as teenagers is breaking away from family. Right. So they have to self-identify, and that's part of their job is being the rebel or not being, or whatever it is. And that's also just part of that time, which has to happen, right? Because that is a point then when kids are we want them to go off and live their own life.
Yeah.
And
absolutely
be happy, successful and content, Yeah.
Right. And I wish more personal development was a part of the school system, so that when they left, it's a passion of mine to try to bring that more into schools, because kids they're not equipped with the right tools emotionally. Emotional intelligence is such a huge part of life. And when they're not getting that, it's just it takes that much longer. You have to go out and search it for yourself. And some people don't ever.
Being able to break it down and to know, a little bit of who you are as a teenager and then going into your 20s, that's huge. Because for me, that didn't happen.
Me neither.
In my 20s, searching it out.
Yep, same.
And Tom and I have done a ton of landmark education courses,
Yeah.
starting with the forum. And we actually, all of our kids have gone through it.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
The youngest one went through as the kids forum as a 10-year-old.
Wow.
And this is funny, a quick story, but Dominic goes to the kids forum, and the instructor says, the leader says, so how many of you were bribed to be here? Right? And my kid raises his hand. I'm like, I could bribe you. And then I go, Dominic, I did not bribe you to be, because we left.
Right.
There's some point we're all together, and then the parents leave and the kids are all, and so I pick him up later that night. He goes, you did too. You said I got to have a day off from school. I go, that's not a bribe. That's just
He was looking on the bright side.
Yeah. That's a fact, not a bribe.
Right.
Okay, maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah. To going back to Katie's system a little bit, because we talked about business and we talked about the 4 questions. What about this other part that she was talking about, flipping it?
Yeah, the turnaround statement.
The turnaround statement.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
The turnaround, and that's, actually when I was doing the Martha Beck life coaching, we worked with the Byron Katie's the work, and the turnaround, and it was just brief, and so I really didn't have a good taste for the turnaround. I just hadn't done it enough, and so when I was able to do this for a couple of weeks, really the turnaround statements are the juicy part of it all. That's right. And and by the way, all of her stuff is free if you go to thework.com.
Yeah, I was able to, and I'll put in the show notes too, where they can find this stuff, because it's all downloadable and free, and it helps walk you through the steps.
Yes. Yeah. You do that. You write out the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and you be as judgy as you want. It's awesome. And then you take all that, and then you use that for the 4 questions, right? And then you go to the turnaround statements. So let's say with the example that I used earlier with Dominic, something's wrong.
Right.
He's gonna lose his job.
Right.
So, and let me just get a little bit deeper than that, because really what was going on was I was upset that he didn't show up, and it made me feel a certain way, because it's all about me, right?
Right.
And so I'm trying to get to the real statements. So you made me scared.
Yes.
Dominic made me scared. Okay, so let's take Dominic.
Because that's the root of the
that's
feeling.
Really the root of it, right? Yeah. You made me scared. So so the turnaround statements, that you turn around to the opposite. So you made me scared. You didn't make me scared. Okay, so I look at that. You didn't make me scared. No, actually, that's true, because I made me scared.
You made yourself scared.
Right?
Right. He doesn't even know what's going on.
He has no idea. He might be in back, making a sandwich. Who knows?
Right.
So I made me scared.
Right.
True story.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then he made me scared. I made me scared. He didn't make me scared. And let's see. Let me think of another turnaround. I make me scared. I make me scared. I make me scared all the time.
Right.
He didn't make me scared. Yeah, so you can see how you're able to start to look at things a little bit differently.
Right.
I make me scared. I make me scared
right.
all the time.
Right.
I'm responsible.
Yes. No one can make you feel any
No,
way. You
no,
make yourself feel that way.
absolutely. So let me see here. Let me look at if I'm missing anything, if there's another way I could turn it around.
And going back to the 4 questions, it's not even, we don't even know if it's true. The statement.
No, I went down this big giant rabbit hole.
Right. Jumping forward to the future of future fear.
Yep.
Based on past fear, not living in the moment.
That's right.
Yep.
And assumptions.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I do that all the time.
We all do that all the time.
Yeah. Making assumptions.
Right.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? I just made that, I made that assumption. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would challenge everyone to practice this for one day. Just one day. Just use it as an exercise to, take situations that are making you feel a certain way and use the 4 questions. The 4 questions. Evaluate the business. Whose business is it? Is it even your business?
Yeah.
Right? And then flip it.
Yeah.
And just
so
see how much better you feel about where you're at.
When you practice it, you're able to do it so quickly. You're able to dismantle something so quickly.
Right.
You can be in a line at Starbucks and be frazzled and pissed off that the person in front of you can't decide what to order, and you're like, God,
yeah,
she should hurry up.
Yeah.
She should hurry up. Really? Maybe I should have left 5 minutes earlier so that I wouldn't be frazzled in Starbucks and, irritated that somebody is actually being mindful, trying to decide what they really want to drink this morning. Right. That's the reality.
Right.
She's just taking her time and being mindful of what she really wants to. But it's because I've set myself up for this suffering.
Right.
And now I can either allow it to affect me for 1 more second, 1 more hour, or 1 more day.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you'll have so much less assaults on you. You're letting all this assault in on you all of the time when you're taking things personally.
Oh, that's such a good way of putting it.
What are you doing? Why are you doing that to yourself? It's unnecessary.
Yes.
Right?
And energetically.
Draining.
Right? And when you're not in that place and you're not letting the assaults in because they simply don't happen.
Yes.
Then what happens energetically? Like everything's easy.
Right.
And energetically, the people that are happy and, are like positive, good people, those are the people that are attracted to you then.
Right.
Yeah. Like if
your light is shining,
yes.
Your light is shining, and the people who want to stay in the dark are, they're repelled by your light.
And if you're getting assaulted like that, using your example, then it is your responsibility.
Yes.
It's not the other people.
Right.
But it's like a magnet, right?
Right. Well, you can't do anything about other people. You can't do anything about other people. You can only start here with yourself.
Say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for thank you for shining that light on that little piece that I need to work on that. I need to, that's so, like Katie says, if somebody says, man, you're pushy. Oh, really? I'm pushy? You want to see pushy, or, I'm pushy.
Yeah.
Is it true? Yeah. You know what?
I guess I am.
I can see where you say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
And hey, you know what? In the future, when you feel that from me, would you mind alerting me so that I can change that? Because that's not who I want to be in the world.
Right.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been such a great conversation. And there's a couple other things I want to cover just because I know there's people listening to this that are thinking, oh, that stuff's not for me. It's airy fairy. It's, raw stuff. And it's, that's not reality, right? Some people have that outlook on personal development in particular. What would you say to them to kind of get them past that? Because, this stuff works if you work it, if you do the work.
Well, first of all, I think that I'm not going to convince you. You have to be ready. You have to, which may or may not happen in this month or year or lifetime even, that's, again, it's kind of none of my business, right?
Right.
And so if you're not ready, if this really doesn't resonate with you, it's okay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you want to end your suffering, if you want to see things differently, if you want life to be easier, then you might want to look at, just tip your toe. You don't have to dive in, right? But just tip your toe, and just pick up a book, or go to Katie's website, or listen to a podcast, or however you want to, whichever way the information is going to resonate with you best.
Right.
Do that, and look, it may not be Byron Katie, it may not be Martha Beck, it may not be Eckhart Tolle, it may not be Deepak Chopra, and Ram Dass. Those are all my teachers, right? But it may not be any of those people,
right?
And you go find your person.
Absolutely.
And if it makes you feel better, and if there's pain and suffering that is alleviated in your life, then awesome.
Yes.
Right? And so the first question is, are you ready to end the pain and suffering? That's really the first question.
Yeah. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
And our teachers are the people that we just are like, oh, those are our teachers, those are the moments that we go, okay, we can see it one way. We can, oh my God, you're a pain in the ass, pardon my French. Or you can go, hey, okay, this is an opportunity.
Right.
Opportunity for me to see it differently. This is an opportunity for me to get taught,
Right.
And it's all about how you see things.
Absolutely. I have to ask you one last question because my sister will kill me if I don't ask you, because she's a huge Oprah fan. Well, we both were. I mean, we grew up watching Phil Donahue and Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, Phil Donahue! Now you're dating yourself.
Now I'm dating myself.
Oh, totally.
Man, we came home from school. We'd turn it on. We were. I don't know what you call it, I guess, couch psychologists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, better.
So anyway, you met Oprah. Can you share that story with us?
Well, I've gone to see, because I am a fan as well. And what I love about Oprah is that, first of all, her story is so incredible. Right? Mm-hmm. Being, growing up with her, essentially with her grandparents, and being sexually abused, and going to college, and then getting a job as a reporter, and then a talk show, and then who she be, and the decision. I think the thing that I admire her the most about is she decided who she was going to be in the world, that she was going to be a stand for people, right? That she was not afraid of talking about the hard stuff.
Right.
And so
generous with her story.
Yeah,
so generous.
Totally. That's it. generous with her story, and the weight, the weight loss struggles and all of it. And so I've been a fan as well. And a friend of mine, Michelle Wallach, was a fan. And so she has been able to, I think 3 or 4 different times we've gone to see Oprah live. And she really is like larger. When you see her on stage, she's larger than life.
Right.
And incredible. And I think after all the thousands and thousands of interviews that she's done, she really is she's at a place in her life where she is fully herself, and she knows so much. Her knowledge is unbelievable because of all the people that she's interviewed and studied.
Yeah.
So Michelle, because of a contact, it's who you know, right?
It's all network.
And so Stedman Graham is Oprah's significant other, her partner.
Yeah.
A good friend of his worked for the company. And so Michelle was able to call up Stedman and say, hey, Stedman, Oprah's going to be in Vancouver. Any way we can get backstage passes? And it was because of that connection that she was able to make it happen. And there were like 10 of us, and we went up and
how awesome is that?
Yeah. And her assistant, we didn't know if it was going to happen before the show or after the show. And so we're literally like, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and we're like, hair done, makeup.
You're ready to meet Oprah.
The thing doesn't start until 8, by the way. So we're like ready. We're getting that call, and, bells on our toes.
Yeah.
And we get the call, and so we got to meet Oprah beforehand. And the funny thing is, how you, in your mind, you're like, oh, in my mind, she's like 6 feet tall,
Right.
And she's not. She had tennis shoes on and sweatpants before. She would hair and makeup all done, but she still had a sort of I'm sure, very expensive tracksuit. Right. And flat tennis shoes, and we were about the same height. And I was like, wow.
She's way smaller than I thought she was.
Yeah. And she was very gracious, and unfortunately we didn't get to really talk with her that much, but we got photos with her, and got to express our gratitude, and I got to say what just a beautiful stand she's been especially for women,
right?
And what a difference she's made in my life, and so that was worth it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going with you guys next time.
Yeah. There's been a few, I've met the Dalai Lama, and, there's a few people that their presence is really moving to me.
Yeah. So with that, where can people find you, Denice?
Well, Longmont, Colorado. So my website is Denice, and you can remember this. My name is actually spelled Denice, so it's Denice, and then my last name Chenault, Chenault, and it's just DeniceChenault.com, and that's my website. And my email is DeniceChenault@mac.com if you want to email me. And you're available for speaking and just connecting. Absolutely. And most importantly, I just want to be of service. I really do. And however that looks. So yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the Naturally Inspired podcast, Denice. Tammy, I love you. Thank you for everything you do. You're making such a difference out there. And, keep doing it, man, because we need what you have. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for being on. I love you. Thank you. Love you.
If the naturally inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862.